And we're joined by Vikram Ahuja, the co-founder of Talent 500 by ANSR, which is a talent acquisition company for Fortune 500 companies. Welcome, Mr. Ahuja, on this broadcast. We're just trying to take a look at how this new executive order that has been signed by President Donald Trump and what kind of an impact that will have on people, especially from the IT industry, who are eyeing a place for themselves in the job market.
Well, to be honest, I think it's part of a continuing policy by the American government to start to uplift a battered economy in the wake of COVID-19. Certainly not surprising, given that President Trump has already indicated a ban on H-1b earlier and indicated future moves to protect American or local employment. So from that standpoint, it's not very surprising. But I think from an impact perspective, if you look at the way work, or at least federal work, was being given out to third parties, there were certainly certain restrictions. For example, things like defense or security would not have been contracted out anyway. We're talking about things like education or healthcare that might have had some exposure to, for example, services firms and particularly Indian talent. So some of that will be impacted, primarily on-site work. We've been saying from the beginning that this is a tremendous opportunity for us to actually leverage India as a destination for technology development and for local tech talent to start building in India. I think H-1b was always about availability of talent. So this doesn't necessarily solve that. But what it does do is it probably keeps some of that talent in India from traveling out or looking at on-site opportunities. And it gives us an opportunity to build locally for global companies out of India.
I'm just going to refer to a statement that has been put out by NASSCOM on this particular order. NASSCOM has said, among other things, it has said that these measures that the Trump administration is taking, it's going to end up slowing down the recovery of the US economy in terms of jobs, in terms of innovation and R&D. It also mentions that the maximum number of hirings in the STEM sector in the United States actually takes place on people who are on this particular visa. So how much of this is an election gimmick, and do you think that this is going to be rolled back once the elections are over?
Well, I think there's a few parts to that question. Like I said earlier, the H-1b was always about availability of talent, and from that perspective, it allowed highly skilled professionals to contribute to the American economy. So there will definitely be some impact. A lot of people have said that it'll stifle innovation or technology development. So that's one way of thinking about it. I think the Democratic frontrunner also talks about rolling back the H-1b ban that President Trump has put in place. So I think there is certainly a political angle to this. But at the same time, I think this is something that we will see around the world, which is as countries try to deal with growing unemployment, there will certainly be protectionism or move to sort of prioritize local employments.
Right.
And this is not the first. But I think just adding one point from our perspective, which is, as Indian technology professionals, how should we be looking at this? And we've mentioned this before. I think the trend over the last decade or so has been that some of the world's largest companies or the world's leading companies are actually coming to India to set up development and innovation teams. So I think that's a trend that we should really ride on. And rather than us going out to the world, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to draw investment into India and have companies set up teams here. Because the best talent,
we're
to be
also
honest,
joined by Chocko Valliappa, the CEO of V Technologies. Welcome on our broadcast, sir. You're on one of India's largest companies in the strategic service businesses, and you're also associated with an educational institution, the Sona College. So just trying to understand how does this impact and what kind of a blow this is going to be to students who are eyeing, to go abroad for their further studies, hoping to get a post-study work visa. What kind of an impact is it going to have on them, at least in the next 2-3 years?
It's more high on optics right now, Ruby, because it's aimed at the US elections, and education contributes to 25% of American imports. So it's one of the largest sector. So it's again aimed at getting the educational institutions to start opening out and kind of look normal before the elections. We are less than 100 days from the US elections. So it is going to impact for the next 1 year. And India spends today about 98,000 crores on overseas education to the US particularly. And so that would be a good boon for Indian educational institutions too, to attract more talent and retain them in India. I think talking on the technology side, bilateral agreement, because if you compare India and China vis-a-vis the trade with the US, India exports more new tech and not old tech, not old industry, whereas China exports a lot of old technology, old steels and more core industries. So as a result, for example, Facebook today, India is the largest country for Facebook. It has 290 million users when compared to 190 million users in the US itself. So if you take that account, India's contribution to Facebook's 750 billion or 800 billion is over close to $100 billion. So that value is not being accounted for. It's high time India has a bilateral trade negotiation with the US.
Right. Mr. Valliappa, this affects as the NASSCOM response to this order. It talks about that this order comes at a time when there's a huge shortage of STEM skills in the US. In fact, they pointed out that unemployment rate for computer occupations, those that are the most common amongst the H-1b visa holders, that's actually declined from January to May in 2020. So as somebody who runs a tech company, does this affect your business personally? Does it increase your costs, decrease your cost? What does it do personally for your company?
So most of the tech companies we have moved to hiring onshore Americans. So V Technologies, for example, 95% of our team in the US are all pure Americans. So from that angle, I think we're well positioned, and a lot of other big companies hiring more local talent. But America is America today because it had a strong immigration focus.
Absolutely.
And it became the magnet for high talent around the world. And that is getting dented. And that might dent America in the long run. And it might be good for Indians to aspire to be in India, work in India. And frankly, today, in the next 1 year, H-1b is, you're not going to have people going to the US as such because, travel is banned and, no one wants to travel. So it's mostly aimed at the US elections coming in November 3rd.
So, Mr. Ahuja, does this order affect people who are currently on an H-1b visa, who are already in the United States working on this visa?
I haven't seen the details of the order that's come out very recently, but I understand that the last one did create certain complications for people who are outside the country. I think people in the country with H-1Bs were fine.
Right. And as somebody who provides a service for computer industry, for the engineering students, do you think that they'll be looking at offers? All of these students who are going to graduate from IITs, IIMs, is anybody going to be hopeful to get an offer from abroad now, considering that there is so much scrutiny over foreign hiring?
Well, now I think given that H-1Bs are banned altogether, at least till the end of the year, I think hiring for some of these roles have stopped. But I think the trend that, I want to sort of point out is a lot of companies are now looking to build teams in India because they find that it's easier to go where the talent is rather than try and bring the talent to you.
Sure.
And we're seeing that is growing tremendously. You're looking at least a 15 to 20% growth year on year of global companies setting up teams in India. So I think quite the reverse is happening. And it's a really exciting time to be an Indian technology professional because you have access to the best opportunities in your backyard.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a wait and watch as more details emerge from that order and we see how this is actually going to affect Indians, especially in the IT industry.